My Lords, the Noble Lord, Lord Jones, spoke about a war on carbon. Of course, that's a war that we shouldn't be having to fight. The arrival of these regulations is an expression of failure over decades. We've continued to dig up coal, oil and gas and burn it. And now, after having done all that damage to the natural carbon capture and storage, the best possible form of carbon capture and storage, that nature has done for us over 100 millions of years, now we're trying to find a mechanism to undo some of the damage that we've done. Yet what we're doing here is establishing an expensive top-down framework for a technology that doesn't yet exist at any scale, which, if successful, will create natural monopolies. This novel industry has zero customers, no guarantee that there will be customers in the future, and it will be heavily dependent on the government to adopt an energy and industrial strategy down a route that makes the carbon capture and storage industry possible. It's heavily centralised, risky and expensive, which must be contrasted to the decentralised, readily available and readily deployable technologies that already exist as an alternative to CCS. What the government's proposing with these regulations are huge subsidies for decades in the hope that at some point there will be economic developments that will start to reduce the cost to the taxpayer. This means we're in a situation a little bit like the problem we have with incinerators, whereby we build incinerators with contracts to supply them with waste for decades, then we have to generate the waste. The government is here really combining science fiction with dinosaur thinking. And I do feel some sympathy for the Noble Lord the Minister, because these regulations have landed in your Lordship's committee on a rather unfortunate week. To quote the website The Energy Mix, industry negotiates a very bad week, referring to the carbon capture and storage industry. And this is reflecting two developments in Canada, where Capital Power Generation has cancelled a 2.4 billion Canadian carbon capture and storage project at their Genesee generating station, saying it is, quote, technically viable but not economically feasible. Now, this reflects, as the Canadian National Climate with Environmental Defence Organisation said, it's the latest failure in carbon capture's terrible track record. Now, this project had already received $5 billion Canadian from the Government of Alberta and was being set up for further tax breaks and support from both the Canadian federal and provincial governments. It's just not working. And the other bad week to which the website was referring is figures that have come out from the Boundary 3 Dam project, a $1 billion Canadian project, which had promised to capture 90% of CO2 that was being generated. In fact, its capture rate has only been 57%. So that makes me raise a question to raise with the Noble Lord the Minister in terms of the regulations before us and the government's plans, and indeed a question perhaps to the Labor front bench as well. What is going to be done to ensure that if there are contracts, and these are contracts are promising a certain rate of capture, what happens if that rate of capture is not met with in this very damaging, in this very new industry, with the potential for causing considerable damage if it actually fails to deliver what's promised. And I note that the Toronto Globe and Mail is saying there are, quote, continuing tensions between the industry and the federal government about the extent to which public dollars will be used to provide for this industry. With that in mind, I note the comments from the Noble Lord the Minister in his introduction, and indeed in the explanatory notes 5.10 in the Directions, Eligibility and Counterparty Regulations and 5.9 in the Directions and Counterparty Regulations, both of which refer to the importance about the information being publicly deployed. And I note the comments the Noble Lord the Minister made about commercial confidentiality. We've seen in so many areas of public provision real problems with a hiding behind a total lack of transparency arising from that cover-all of commercial confidentiality. So I wonder, can the Noble Lord the Minister reassure me that that won't be what's happening in this case.